All right. Here's what happened. They wanted to know. I said, what the heck is this free energy stuff? Fairly simple concept. Our current system is scarcity-based energy supply controlled by the military-industrial complex and other elite scumbags. Does not have to be. We've had the potential for nearly 100 plus years, at least 100 plus years, for free energy. And when I say free, I don't mean, that's kind of a misleading term in a sense. All I mean is that it's in abundance. It's to the point where they couldn't profit off of it. They couldn't. And this is exactly what I told my peers.
And as we were discussing during the break, that free energy on the surface sounds fairly innocuous. Whereas had you thrown out as a topic idea, like I said, mind control, it's like, that's a heavy thing. But
exactly,
free energy was sort of like a little, mental grenade that kind of went off later. Exactly.
It might be one of those good topics as an introduction to waking people up. We always, I can guarantee you that 9/11's not the easiest thing to help break through people's conditioning.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
No. I mean, for me it was. For you it was. But for anybody else who's still in the dark at this point, I mean, not everybody else. I guess there's a whole younger generation that wasn't even brainwashed to the same extent that we were.
Well, on the flip side, I kind of worry that it's maybe the flip side, that actually they've gotten it from the very youngest age. So think about, we were 20-something when 9/11 happened, but think about the people who were little kids who are now graduating high school, going to college. They know nothing other than the post-9/11 police state and think all of this is normal, that these things are normal things that happen in a supposedly, democratic republic, or a constitutional republic, I should say.
They can't remember days when their skies weren't filled with chemtrails. I don't know if our listeners realize this. Those chemtrails haven't been up there for the last 20. They haven't been up there for the last 15 years, I would say.
I imagine, and I guess from, and I definitely preface by saying I've not done a ton of research into chemtrails, but I know I definitely try and tell more folks and make the point on my show about using the term geoengineering sometimes to get into the topic, because that's what they're calling it. They're calling it, we're just geoengineering and climate change and blah, blah, blah. And chemtrail, I wonder if sometimes can be a negative word, like Rush Limbaugh would say. Oh, that's a kook detector word. When you say stuff like that, it's an instant, oh, you're a nut. But if you talk about geoengineering, and if you cite, the papers and Council on Foreign Relations and all the others who talk about, affecting the atmosphere, and look at the tests of barium and aluminum and all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's the term chemtrail, I think, that does turn people off. It's a trigger.
It's tough, yeah.
And the same with conspiracy.
Oh yeah.
Anything that is a conspiracy, and it's so overused. We've talked about the use of that word. People understand that.
And again, as Richard Grove said, and has pointed out in his work, conspiracy theory didn't even appear in the OED until 97, which is when the Mel Gibson movie Conspiracy Theory came out. All of this coming on the tail of, the militias and Clinton and all of that stuff in the 90s. That was the sort of nascent, petri dish of what would ultimately become, alternative media in some way, shape, or form. That gets into the whole, all the weird connections, and I like Alex Jones and you don't like this person, and what we can refer, I think it was Visigoth, if folks remember Beyond the Grassy Knoll, great show from a guy called Visigoth. He would always call it the Patriot games. Patriot games, and try and not get into, all the bashing and getting into attacking different hosts in the alternative media. Definitely, I mean, there's there are, of course, things to attack. I just don't feel like that's the best use of our time.
Well, the infighting's got to stop.
I would tend to just not necessarily give things attention.
Well, the powers that shouldn't be, they're unified in a sense,
So here's an interesting one. You just kind of mentioned this in talking about infighting, because this kind of came up recently. At my job, just this past Sunday, in the middle of the day, on the Sunday before Memorial Day, so we were packed, of course, a grocery store in, Portland, Oregon. All of a sudden, I heard kind of this, ruckus, and I'll spare all the, gory details, but essentially, we were targeted with a flash mob protesting the fact that my store does carry some Israeli products. So we were targeted for a protest because we do carry some Israeli products that, and I have some of their paperwork and stuff that I did grab, that, support the Israeli apartheid. So it was one of those things where, while I agree with, your stance, I guess with a lot of the folks in the store, and I know my coworkers and things, I think it just kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way and left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Because it was sort of like, you're going to come to a independent, locally owned business and complain that we're not doing this, this, and this more for, this person and this other group, where I would say, well, vote with your dollar. Don't buy it. We're a grocery store. We take things off the shelf all the time that don't sell. And if you can, wage the information war, and they were doing it, but again, it was one of those where it's like, you're disrupting our business. Like, they kind of shut down the check stands in the front end.
There's so many issues in general that people waste their time with. And they just get caught up on these stupid non-issues.
But for
I'm
me,
sorry
what
if I'm
it is
offending anyone, but I think those people that stand outside of the abortion clinics, I mean, I don't agree with abortion, but those people, I asked them, rolled down my window as I see these people, and I say to them, do you guys care about what's going on right now? What about the soldiers? What about the fluoridation or water supply or whatever it is I'm talking about? They have no clue.
There's so much, I think, probably on both the left and the right of the phony political paradigm, that there is so much time and energy spent on these sort of identity politics issues. But what I was talking about with coworkers after we had this kind of flash mob protest,
real quick, we're running out of time,
is that's kind of the reason why the left ideals aren't as successful as the right ideas, because the right gets in lockstep and the left says, well, I'd like to support you, but you're not a vegetarian.
That's
the infighting
at its best. All right, thank you so much, James.
Oh, man, I'll stick around one more segment with you.
All right, stand by. We'll get to that next hour. This is the Bob Tuskin Show.
Just, Skype being sold to Microsoft.
And
just another unfortunate, like, oh, God, that used to be something, cool and independent, and now it's just been gobbled up. So that question is raging right now here in Portland. Also on Food World Order, we have, of course, the food pyramid being replaced with the plate-shaped logo. I'm not sure if you've covered that story, but it's on there on foodworldorder.com.
Oh, man, the food pyramid was a joke from the very beginning, and now just to replace it with this...
I did always enjoy that their website was mypyramid.gov.
Yeah, right?
But on some of my other sites, cyberspacewar.com, getting into the cyber attack and Lockheed Martin, and cyber attacks count as an act of war, our misleaders claim. And, of course, there's holyhexes.com. But I also, while I am on sort of a break, my Twitter feed is actually going to be a source to find some things that won't make it to the websites, just things to kind of quickly tweet out. But, of course, twitter.com/Media Monarchy. One of the recent things I have is satire from The Onion, because they do it so well. Report says economy failing because U.S. built on ancient Indian burial grounds. Now, while that may sound like a joke for folks, it's pretty much the central thesis of the fantastic 3-part series from Peter Levine called Sinister Forces, that if there are holy sites, doesn't it stand to reason that there are also unholy sites, and the entire America is essentially a haunted house built on stolen Indian land, and it's now where our military bases and our prisons always seem to be over top of mounds, such as Moundsville in my home state of West Virginia. So that's,
Really?
again, satire done by The Onion and some other
Oh
places
yeah,
like betterbadnews.com is a great one. Really
that's a
cuts
great
to
site. And of course, we're going to continue to celebrate Christopher Columbus Day here on the Bob Tuskin Show because, well, he was a great mass murderer, wasn't he?
it. He really was. He really was. And of course, we are the Columbian endeavor to find,
Sure.
Atlantis.
There it is again. We talked about that last show,
Yep.
didn't we?
Yep. Thanks so much for having me on again, man. I really appreciate it. I enjoy the kind of easygoing back and forth that we can have here.
Hey, anytime, not anytime, the first Wednesday of every month, James.
All right. We'll keep it to that for now.
All right, we'll have you back on as soon as possible. All right, thanks, James, so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother.
All right, folks, we'll be back in just